Hey guys, and welcome to episode 114 of Meeple to Meeple. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's what they say. This is going to be Cardboard and Color, the Alchemy of Beautiful Board Games. That's the title. That's right. I'm getting fancy on y'all now. As always, our main PJ. And with me is Brynn. Brynn, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm good, PJ. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm glad we're able to do this finally.
Yes.
We've had like a Gen Con relationship pretty much. We see each other like
Yep.
once a year, and this is great. I'm really looking forward to this.
Terrific. Yes, it's good to see you again.
Yep. So it was your idea that we talk about our favorite beautiful games.
hmm
That was what you told me, and I said, let's do it.
Yeah, I just thought that this is something that a lot of people do appreciate. The
Yeah.
art and the style of games can have a big impact on people's enjoyment of them.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, and I had asked you this before the recording. So we're talking about games that if you buy at retail, it's beautiful. This is not games that you've upgraded or
No, certainly there, obviously we know that there are tons of games that you can bling out and get all kinds of expansions and upgrades. But the games I'm talking about, I feel were beautiful right out of the box.
so I got to say, I'm really energized by this topic. I kind of took a really deep dive and went down a lot of theological and philosophical and literary rabbit holes because I was like, okay, we're going to talk about beautiful games. But what is beauty? There we go. And then the whole began. So I was thinking about this. It's like I've written so many notes, and everyone's gonna be like, "Why is he looking off screen?" Beauty is a quality that gives pleasure and sometimes meaning to the mind. And I was like,
Mm.
and that's me. So you can quote me. That's yeah.
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
okay. I was like, cool. All right. So it gives you pleasure and sometimes meaning. And I think that comes out in our conversation today, particularly on board games, right? Because they're not
hmm
just they look good on the table, right? We want the
Yeah,
game experience. We want to have meaning afterwards, right? Maybe it's not deep and philosophical like some of us, but we want
right.
something more, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And the beauty of a game can also affect whether people even want to play it. I
Right.
can think of for instance, Glory to Rome, which
Mm-hmm.
is a fantastic game, but the
Yes.
original art was so cartoony and I really didn't like it, so I never wanted to play it. But then I got the black box version with that minimalist style, very classic and
Yeah.
clean, and now I love it. It's one of my favorite games.
And I'm happy to say that because of you, I got to experience playing that. You're right, because the game is so good,
hmm
but the artwork maybe not so much. At least not the original versions.
Right.
Um, why don't you? I wanted to ask you this: why did you choose this topic? Like, we could have talked about anything. What is it about beautiful games? What is it that you're hoping that I will take away from this conversation? That our listeners will take away? Um,
Well, I thought that I wanted to pick a topic that was interesting to me, a topic that would be maybe a little bit different. I didn't want to just come in and say, oh, these are my top 5 games, which I'd be
right.
happy to talk about at any time. But I wanted to have sort of a different theme and maybe share some ideas about games that so people think about them in a new way. And maybe there might be a couple of games that might be new to some people.
Cool. Well, why don't you start us off? I think you have 5 titles, right?
Yes, and an honorable mention.
Yep. And I just picked 3 of them. So
Yeah.
you have a lot of games, but hopefully I can squeeze in all my thoughts about beauty
Okay.
interspersed in that. So tell us your first. Did you rank them?
It's sort of a loose ranking, so I do
Okay.
have an order.
Okay. Okay.
So the first game that I thought was actually this is the honorable mention. This was my wife's suggestion. My wife
Yes.
is yes, my wife is not a gamer like I am, but she likes to play some games with me. And one of her favorite games that she does like to play is Sagrada.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a very good game. It's by Floodgate Games, designed by Adrian Adamescu and Daryl Andrews, with art by Peter Wacken. And just the dice themselves are beautiful. The clear, all the different colored dice, and you're
Okay.
actually trying to, you're using the dice to create a stained glass window. And sort of in a way, it's an abstract puzzle game because you have to draft the dice and put them in different patterns. You can't put the same colors together. You can't put the same numbers together. So that's where the gaming and strategy comes in. And there are tools you can use to break the rules, but you end up creating, it almost is kind of like a little piece of art in front of you once you have all the colored dice together.
So you said your wife wasn't a gamer, like a hobbyist gamer like we are.
Right.
Was it the beauty of Sagrada that drew her to the game, or was it the gameplay and then the beauty enhanced the meaning for her?
I would say she was first attracted to how it looked,
Yeah.
the beauty of the dice and the idea of the windows. But then the gameplay caught her attention. It's a great game in addition to an attractive game.
So I kind of wish, I know we're not talking about upgrades, but I feel like the one upgrade that Sagrada needs is some like sort of a backlight so that light could shine through the dice, right?
If you had a box instead of just a card with light underneath it.
I mean, that's the whole point, is you're making a stained glass window. That would be really cool, but really expensive.
Yes.
If anyone wants to make that for Meeple to Meeple, I will send you my address.
A little light box that you put the dice on, yes.
Yes, that's awesome. Sagrada. God, that's such a good game. Mm-hmm. So tell us about the first one on your list.
The first one I picked for my list, I kind of took the idea of beauty in more than one way. And that was, I went with Lacrimosa.
Because I have never played that.
Oh, you haven't played it. It is such a good game. It's by Devier Games and designed by Gerard. I'm sure I'm saying some of these names wrong, and I apologize to everyone that I mispronounced. Designed by Gerard Asensi and Ferran Renalius, with art by Jared Blando and Enrique Corominas. Just when I first saw it, the box just at Gen Con is where I first saw it a couple of years ago. And the box is so visually striking. But then the components are beautiful. And I thought that the idea, the theme is just so unique. And of course, the beauty of the music, since it's based on the life and music of Mozart, I thought that would be a welcome addition to the idea of beautiful games.
That's great. So it's both visually beautiful, but then while there's no audible music in the game, the concept of music and creating beautiful music is beautiful.
And that's and part of the gameplay is you're actually hiring composers to complete Mozart's music is part of the gameplay. So so the theme embraces it. And then there are cards that you play that mention specific pieces of his music. So it might inspire someone to go out and listen to, Eine kleine Nachtmusik or something like that.
That's awesome. It's been on our game it's on our wish list, right?
Uh-huh.
Just, there's so many games out there to grab them.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that you went with the game is physically beautiful, but the concept and the meaning behind the game is also beautiful. I love that.
Right.
Which supports my quote at the beginning, and you didn't even know about it, so thank you. So my first of three, unfortunately, none of them are a surprise to anyone who's listened to the podcast. I don't think I mentioned a title that I haven't talked about before. So it's kind of hard because the thing is, what I took away was I have to own the game. It can't be a game that I think is beautiful that I played. I want to be able to have it. It's kind of my governing rule. I know that when we have this conversation, just generally, we could talk about games we played, but so the first one is Botany by Dux Somnium Games. And the art was done by Amy and Dusty Draws, who also are the designers of the game. Now they were guests on the podcast a year ago after Botany was released, and Amy talks at length about all the detail behind the design, even of the interior of the box lid. If you lift the insert, just the artwork on the inside. She wanted everything to look amazing. In fact, if you go back and listen to it, she talks about the gold leaf of the print on the cover of the box. She's like, I wanted this, and I think Dusty made a comment like, well, we don't need to do that because it's not, but it was just interesting to talk to them and hear about the whole design of Bonnie. It's gorgeous. They used public domain images, but the images of the flowers and the plants, right, that the early conservationists coming from England as part of their explorations of the world, right, because that's the setting of the game. It's almost, because it's a map of the world, even the map Gorgeous. It's not very like Pandemic has a very technical, very modern map.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of, well, it fits that theme.
Right. And so Botany's got this beautiful, it's almost as if it were a 18th century map that's unfolding. You could imagine yourself in the captain's quarters on an old sailing vessel, and they've got it out on the desk. And but like Pandemic, you have a pawn that you're moving around the board, and you have cards in your hand, and there's samples of different flowers and plants that you have to discover and bring back to your estate in England. And so you got to, travel around the map. But even the pawns are beautiful. They're fashioned after chess pieces, which is really nice. That's a beautiful game and very striking. Their newest game is also beautiful, and I wanted to talk about it, but I'm planning on talking about it in a future episode. So stay tuned for that, guys.
Hold on.
But Botany by Dux Somnium Games is the first of my 3 games that I just think are beautiful. I also
I'll have
like
to check
that
that out.
Yeah, it's a little educational as well because as a historian, I love that it's themed in the history. So it's, there's giving meaning there. Hopefully you learn something about the early conservation efforts. And I know there's a lot of, you're promoting colonialism, and that colonialism is bad, yes, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There were some things that are important to us, modern peoples, that came out of colonialism, and I'd rather focus on that positive, but at the same time, you speak to the truth. Yes, it's the result of this, but there is some beauty that did come out of it, and I think they were trying to focus more on that. I think they did. So
I haven't tried it. I'll have to get that to the table.
Definitely, you got to do it. Botany, it's worthy.
Okay.
How about you? What's your next one?
All right. My next one, you mentioned that the Botany pawns were beautiful. I've got a game that the board is beautiful, the tiles are beautiful, the pawns are beautiful, and it is Tsuro.
Ooh, that is a great game and a beautiful one.
Yeah. Designed by, published by WizKids and a number of other publishers. Designed by Tom McMurtry and artists. They got a slew of artists: Andrew Hepworth, Shane Small, and Imelda and Franz Vohwinkel. And it's a very lightweight, abstract, like family game. It's another game that my wife has played and enjoyed. I mean, you know it. You're placing tiles and you're moving your pawn around the board, and just the level, the exquisiteness of the playing pieces and the map that you're making. It's supposed to be very meditative and contemplative as you move your piece around the board, while at the same time you're trying to get all the other players' pieces off the board, so you're the last one standing. So it plays real fast. It's simple to teach and to play, and just the amount of detail in the beauty of it, I think, is really, really special.
Can you say a little more about the pawns themselves? I know that some of our listeners may not be familiar with the game, and they are really amazing.
Just open the box, and you have this right here at the top. I mean, here's the rules. Just the presentation is just really special, and the playing pieces are these different.
Yeah, look at that.
Okay.
Yep, they're just amazing. They're truly amazing.
Right, and the backs of the tiles look like that, and that's where you create the paths as you move your pawn around.
Right,
and you try to keep your pawn on the board, and drive the other pawns off. So simple, but it's got a very classic, beautiful look. And like I said, it's just the presentation at all the different levels of the game. It's just really special.
And it really supports and solidifies that theme, right? Japanese? It's Japanese, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's Japanese theme.
The calligraphy is just amazing. Of course, Japanese and Chinese calligraphy both are just fantastic.
Right.
So my next game is another one that I've mentioned for a while. Our good friend Craig, Get Into Games in England, is constantly on the lookout for this. Every time we talk, he's like, "Don't talk about it anymore because you're making me jealous." Not that I'm trying. But right above me, that is Men Nefer by Pegasus Spiele, and the artist is Laura Bevan or Bevon. Either way, I said it wrong. But it's amazing. So it's set in ancient Egypt. It's 2 to 4 players, all wooden components, all are beautiful fish. But the thing is, you've got a heart and a feather and this is probably the most striking and most beautiful conceptual, like beauty to the mind, right, of this game,
Mhm.
is at the top of the board, there's a chart, and your heart and your feather, because when you die, the concept of the afterlife is that you will weigh your heart against a feather to determine your fate in the afterworld or
Okay.
afterlife. And so you want to achieve balance. And so there are actions that you can take throughout the game to move your feather and subsequently your heart to the center. You want to achieve that level of harmony. At the beginning of the game, for every space that they're apart, when you get to the end of each round and score, you lose points. Once they meet, you don't lose or gain points. And if they cross over, then you start accruing points to indicate that you have achieved balance and you've not paid homage, but you've achieved harmony in your life, which is pleasing to the god Ma'at, the god of
Mhm.
harmony in ancient Egypt. And all the pieces are wooden. The beautiful printing on the pieces on the board, everything's very clear. It's obvious when you take an action what resource you will be getting, because the image and print is so clear, concise, but yet beautiful at the same time. This is this huge map. And then one of the actions you could take is to contribute to construction of the pyramids. And so you're building these big wooden pyramids 1/4 at a time and stacking them up. And it's truly amazing. You can see it right above my head. Even the cover is
Mhm.
just, there's a lot of hieroglyphic detail that is just absolutely incredible. It's one of our favorites. We played it just this year. It was released last year. We played it at Geekway in January, and we're like, oh my God, this game. And we won it. We won it in the play to win. So, and
Okay.
it was a free copy.
Nice.
But it's so good. It's so good, guys. It's so
Okay.
beautiful. And it really stimulates the senses, right?
Uh-huh.
I think Men Nefer, what came to mind in doing all my research on beauty, but this game in particular really demonstrates. So the Greek philosopher Plato, he described that there were two kinds of beauty. There was
Mhm.
sensual and intellectual beauty. And by sensual, he
Mhm.
didn't mean sexual. He meant the senses, right? Taste, smell,
Right.
hearing, everything like that, vision. And there is an intellectual beauty in Men Nefer. There's even a
Mhm.
little kind of not theological. I don't know. There's a word to talk about like the study of the afterlife, because you're with the
Mhm.
harmony and balance. So, and there's the intellectual. So it really combines the two types of Platonic Plato beauty. And I was like, oh my God, this is, when I saw that quote, I was like, Men Nefer.
Perfect. Yeah,
So
the that
yeah.
idea, I get that idea of the idea of balance and
Hmm.
harmony. So I can understand that you're going to have the physical beauty of the game, but
Yeah.
also the beauty of the idea.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, this is just amazing. And it's such a great experience. And then back to my original quote at the beginning, it gave us pleasure, at least for my wife and I. Playing the game was pleasurable, right? But then we extrapolated meaning from it when we walked away from the table.
Mhm.
And then it's designed so well. It's a heavyweight game, right? Like, I don't think I don't think your wife would play it. I don't think it's definitely not a
Right.
gateway game by any means. I think it appeals to hobbyists so much so that it's one of the few games that both my wife and we will be thinking about this game after playing it. And I'm sure you've experienced this, where you're like, next time I play this game, I want to try this different strategy, or
Right. Mhm.
whatever. And I don't even care if like it leads me to victory next time. I'm like, I didn't really do this action much. I want to try that next time and see what happens.
Yeah.
And
That's a cool different approach.
yeah, exactly, right? And that enhances the meaning of the game when you walk away, I think, right? Obviously I can't
Mhm.
speak for anyone else, but definitely for myself. So Men Nefer by Pegasus Spila. Check
Sounds
it out.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. Well,
So what's next?
my next game, Tsuro, I'm not sure, Japanese or Chinese, I'm not sure, but this one I know has a Japanese theme. I'm sure you know this game. It is Tokaido. Okay, another
Yeah.
great game, right? By Devir Games.
Mhm.
It's interesting. You're going to see the same publishers keep coming up over and over, and of course, new publishers are coming up with beautiful, great games. Devir has published some great games. This was designed by the great Antoine Bauza, and with art by, again, hopefully I'm saying things somewhat near correctly, Xavier Guenefé Durin.
It sounds good to me.
It's a family game, like a family level game. And the theme itself, it's about, as you know, it's about traveling on a road in Japan. And the interesting mechanic is who's ever in last place gets to go take the next turn. So you can kind of decide how many turns you end up taking. Like if you want to get to the stuff you really want, you can move ahead, but then you won't get as many actions. So you can kind of control what you're doing. But a couple of things about it. First off, the board itself, again, I like in a lot of games, a very minimalist, clean style. And so this board is very graphically interesting. It's not a map of Japan. It's like a line and with icons, with iconography. And you're going step by step. So it's a very clean, different look. And the point of the game is kind of about beauty. As you travel, you're collecting beautiful things, meeting interesting people, creating panoramic vistas to look at. Yes. And the winner of the game, you're collecting points, but sort of the theme of the game is your points are coming from the experiences that your traveler has as they travel along this road.
Yeah.
So I think it's got a beautiful look, but also again, the idea of the game is supporting the idea of beauty.
Right. Both literally and spiritually, socially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the panoramas is that physical beauty, right? Because you're painting, you're creating artwork.
Right. The gameplay is it's a set collection, and you're creating like you said, you're painting like a vista, the mountains or the sea, and you collect the cards and you actually make that little vista, that view right in front of you.
Yeah. Have you played the 2-player version of Tokaido?
I have Tokaido Duo. I have not played it yet.
That is a worthy game. It's slightly different in execution of the mechanics, but yet it's pretty successful. And if my wife is any indication, your wife will like it too, I think.
Okay.
It's a lot easier. It has less of a table presence, which is just fantastic when it's just the two of us,
Yeah. I know that I've seen the game. I've seen it at Gen Con, and I know it's sort of a more self-contained game.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. So my next title is yet another one I talked about, and that's right above me is Tabriz. It was published by Crafty Games. Did Finney or Fini or Fini? I don't know. Sid, if you ever listen, I apologize. This is just a fantastic another beautiful game set. You're a Middle Eastern, even Indian kind of a carpet dealer or fabric dealer, right? And so the wooden components for the resources are amazing. Even the insert is very elegant. It holds all the pieces, yes, and that's great, but it fits within the overall visual, I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, of the game. My favorite, I've said this before in previous episodes, what I like is it doesn't have a board. It has a neoprene mat. It's double-sided for player count, so it scales really well, 2 to 5 players, I believe. So you have 3 workers, which it's not really, it's kind of worker placement, but your workers are always on the board and they move along the road to different market stalls to purchase the resources you need to fulfill customer orders, which are represented by cards in your hand. The coins are amazing, and they're in the I don't know what because I don't know the history of currency very well, but it's the correct currency of the region from where you're at. I don't know what that currency is called in that time period, but it's fantastic. But I love that there's a space for the neoprene mat to just roll up in the box, so you don't have to store it externally like other neoprene mats. But yeah, so it's interesting. So the game itself is beautiful. Neoprene mat is beautiful. Insert is beautiful. The artwork on the cover, you can see it right here. It's just gorgeous, right? But it's like Tokaido, what you're doing in the game is making beautiful things. You're fulfilling orders, but you're trying to craft a beautiful fabric wear. Not apparel, upholstery. Yes, upholstery. And things of that nature. So you're creating beauty and you're using beautiful things. to create
Yeah.
beautiful things, which score you points and money towards the end of
Mhm.
the game. So simply put, but yeah, check that out. Tabriz by Crafty Games. The
Wonderful.
art, yeah, Sid Finney. That's right. Sorry, I was looking at my notes to
Okay.
make sure I never said that. Yeah. So yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, my next title is going to be not a new one for a lot of people.
Okay.
I thought maybe perhaps we could talk about like our biggest games. So this one would definitely be a contender for that one,
Okay.
especially with the upgrades and all the expansions. You see it here? Does it even fit
Oh,
in the screen? Here we go.
maybe.
So yes, Wingspan by Stonemaier Games. It's another
Yeah.
publishing company that, when you think about quality and beauty, they're going to really stand out. Designed by Elizabeth Hargrave, and with the art is just on the cards for the birds is just so spectacular. Really caught my attention when it first came out. And then when I played it, the first time I played it, we played it a second time right after it. We enjoyed the game so much.
Right.
The art on the cards is by Beth Sobel, Natalia Rojas, and Ana Maria Martinez Jaramillo. And then there's art credits for Greg May and Elizabeth Hargrave as well. You don't need the expansions, but the expansions are just more birds, more bird cards from other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So the art on the cards is beautiful as you look at these different, really, like they're like hand painted nature art to feature these birds,
Right.
and it just really stands out. I know that they've come out with newly themed, like there are variations, but now you've got Wormspan, which features dragons, and now Finspan
Mm-hmm.
just came out featuring fish. And again, the art is for all three versions, I think, is just really so impressive, and it's really a game that caught my eye, and the art made me want to play it. And I also love games that teach you something. The
Right.
cards, at the bottom shows you where the bird lives, and it gives you
Mm-hmm.
some facts about it, some trivia about the bird. And the idea that you're a bird enthusiast or ornithologist studying the birds, collecting them into
Yeah.
your a wildlife refuge or preserve, I think that idea of working with nature to try to help these birds is also beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. I think the other thing that's beautiful about Wingspan is that it can appeal to the non-gamer and
Yeah.
appeal to like the what it were they birders, I think is the
Hmm.
term that they use for bird watchers.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've spoken to some people who don't even really know that our hobby exists, but they are birders. And I told them
Hmm.
about this game. And I know of two people who've purchased the base game just because of my recommendation. I
Hmm.
don't know that they played any other games. I hope it brought them into the larger hobby. But yeah,
If
I so I'm
I've seen this game for sale in the stores of a national park, because of the nature
yes,
connection, you know, and
absolutely.
I'm sure
Yeah.
they have it at birding stores.
Yep. I was struck by it's interesting. I love how you're mentioning games that are connecting to some of the research that I was doing for this episode. It's kind of amazing. So Thomas Aquinas in his Summa Theologica, he said when talking about beauty, there were three components that made up beauty. Granted, he used the Latin, but I'll spare you all that. Wholeness, harmony, and radiance. And I feel like Wingspan, it's a whole game that is expandable. There is a harmony. There's because as you know, there's like the three habitats right in the
Right.
game, and
Hmm.
you kind of need to establish a harmony between them so that you can manage the resources of the game. But then
Right.
there's a radiance that comes out both in the art of the game and the experience of playing it. And I was like,
Yes.
man, Brynn really just bringing it home today. This is awesome. I promise, guys, we did not talk about this ahead of
No,
time. I did all this philosophical research, and you give me an example, and I'm like, that's
that
great.
fits. That fits.
It did. No, I was like listening to you talk, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. This is so cool. I have more quotes that I'm trying to figure out how to fit in, and if I don't get to them,
Okay.
that's okay. That's
All
okay.
right. Well, maybe.
I do have a fourth one. I'll talk about just a little bit. It's one I've talked about a lot, so it's not going to be a
Hmm.
big surprise. That is Tang Garden by Thundergriff Game. Matthew Mizak, I don't know how to pronounce that. I apologize. Is the credited as the artist behind the game. Y'all have seen me show it on the YouTube channel. I've talked about it so many episodes before. From base game to the giant box with all the expansions, I believe it to be the most beautiful game that is in my collection. It's that extra thick, the trees are an extra thick cardboard with beautiful linen finish print. The pavilions are cardboard fashioned within plastic floors and ceilings, and the bridges, the miniatures, even if you don't paint the miniatures, everything about this game is beautiful. And it's a three-dimensional component because you have landscape tiles that you don't actually lay flat like all tile placement games, which you do, right? When you're building the garden, you do lay the tiles flat. But there are landscape tiles that you actually fit. There's a slot in the board so they can fit like this, because when you put the miniatures in the garden, you want them to be looking out at the landscape, and there's icons on those tiles because some of the miniatures, the characters favor certain things so that you can score points. But it's all about the literal three-dimensional space of the board, three-dimensional beauty surrounding the garden. For me, it's the most beautiful game in my collection. That's Tang Garden by Thundergriff. I don't have more to say about it. I mean, I could talk about it for hours, but yeah.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds beautiful. And you mentioned, like you said at the start, there is so much beauty you can add to these games.
Right.
Like there, upgrades and expansions. Like you mentioned painting. Like I've got Foundations of Rome, which has a amazing table presence. The buildings are just beautiful. Yeah. And I got the special wash on the pieces, but I've seen people who have painted their buildings and their pieces. They paint the fountains blue and the trees are green. And it's just once it becomes visually stunning. Just amazing. Yeah. And I see another one behind you.
It's
Tzolk'in.
Interesting. Yep.
I was going to say Tzolk'in.
Yep. I haven't painted it, but yeah.
I painted my gears, so
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
it's really interesting the lengths that us hobbyist gamers will go to enhance the beauty of the physical game.
Right. And you wouldn't do that to a game unless you loved it.
Right. Because it has meaning, which enhances the beauty.
Perfect. Well, the last title I have, another contender for biggest game, and here we go. Another very well-known one.
That's a good
Scythe,
one.
Again by Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier, with art by Jakub Rozalski. I'll see it again. And just the art. I mean, you can see here, it's like this pastoral 1920s Eastern Europe scenes with steampunk mechs, these giant war machines.
Yes.
So all the cards, it's, you pick up the card, and again, it's this pastoral, lovely farm scene with a giant robot in the background. And they look they look like they're like historical. It looks like that's a historical picture. And the detail in the art of the board, the art on the cards, the mechs that they make. And again, I've just got the original plastic unpainted versions, but each faction has their own. The mechs are all different for each faction. They're not all the same. Your player pieces, your little player with their animal companion, all different.
Right.
They're beautiful. The gameplay has a very, it's a complicated game. Like this is another one that my wife probably wouldn't like, but it's only I know in Board Game Geek, they say it's a medium weight game, maybe a little heavier, but it's kind of a very clear, each turn you're taking one action, and then next turn you just have to take a different action. You've got a little player board that lists what you can do. You can upgrade your actions. You can upgrade your mechs or your character, and the interaction of the theme and the components and the beauty, I think, really makes the game stand out.
Absolutely. It's a game that when I got the legendary box to hold all the stuff,
right,
I regretted having thrown away the core box, right? That you just showed in front of you. So I had a friend who also had the legendary box. They sent me their core box so I can hang it on my wall, because that's why I regretted it. I was like, it's so good. It looks great on the wall. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. That's a beautiful game. The experience of playing that the first time, like when we were done, so it was a friend of ours here in Springfield, set it up at our local game store, and he taught it to us. He did not play it because there were 5 of us. who were
Okay.
interested. So he just
So you sort
taught
of
us.
facilitated it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we played the game, and when it was over, I don't remember what the outcome was. I remember looking over at my wife, and both of us were like, this is an incredible, like, the game, like, you know, we were thinking about it for days afterwards. So much so that we did. We bought all the things and the insert and the legendary box and the expansions, and eventually, because COVID gave us time, she painted all the mechs and everything. But yeah, it's interesting to play a game that looks on the surface or the outset like a war game,
Mm-hmm.
which certainly there's area control. There's a little, you do get rewarded for a little bit of combat, not too
Right.
much.
Right. It's not meant to be. It's not a war game. The point of it is
Right,
not the fighting. Mm-hmm.
right. But if that's what you want, there is a faction that, you could play that style. Like you could play different styles
Mm-hmm.
on the same board in the same physical space, 5 different people with different playing styles,
Mm-hmm.
different concepts of beauty, different concepts of what it means to play a board game, and
Right.
they can do that all in one game, which is really, to me, that's the intellectual beauty of Scythe,
Mm-hmm.
is it's all there, self-contained. We don't need 5 different games at 5 different tables. Here you go. Scythe kind of has everything.
I agree. Yep. It's a classic.
Do you have any more titles, or is that everything for you for this
No, that
episode?
was it. I did think about the idea of beauty just in the game design itself, and I was going to mention Arc Nova, which is my number one favorite game right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the pictures of the
Okay.
animals, they're beautiful, but for me, the beauty of that game is it just works so well. Like all the interactions of the game, the actions that you're choosing, the way you can upgrade your actions, the
Yeah.
tiles. I mean, you have to worry about tile placement. You have to worry about the resources. Do you have the right icons? Do you have enough money to get what you need? And it really makes you plan. And I love
Yeah.
the goal. I know that there are some questions. You mentioned the issue of colonialism before. I know that zoos
Sure.
have issues regarding treatment of animals and such. And I love that Arc Nova, you're developing a zoo, but part of the way you win is by supporting conservation projects, to conserve
Right.
the
Yeah.
animals and their habitats, out in the wild. And I just think that that's
Yep.
an example of a beautifully designed game. So the design
Yes.
and the way it works is really beautiful.
Yep. Yeah. No, I totally agree. That is a good one too. We could probably sit here for hours and just talk about, like, beauty, the very concept of beauty. Like I said, everything I did was like I had all these, like, questions. Like, man, I could sit here and ask you, what is beauty, and how do you define beauty, and how does our culture define beauty? But I really I was struck by Plato's comments about the sensual and the intellectual, because we've kind of hit on it on all of our games. It's not just, yes, the game is beautiful centrally to the eye, but it's also beautiful intellectually as you're playing it and when you walk away from it.
I like that. Yeah, I love that idea of that. Yes, it's attractive to view, to experience, but it's also attractive to play, to
Hmm.
to engage with it, and to engage with other
Right.
people doing it.
Yeah. And it's just an enhancement, right? Because think about all the games that are in both of our collections, and games that we haven't even talked about that aren't on our list because they're not beautiful to the eye. We still love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's why we could be here forever talking about beauty, because there's different levels.
exactly. Yep. I don't want to be trite, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yes, yes, it is. If that is the takeaway today, eye of the beholder. Yes, I was thinking about one of the other ones that I came across. This was interesting. Was the Chinese philosopher Confucius? He said that everything has beauty, but not everyone can see that beauty. I was like, yeah, because all of our games are beautiful at different, and
At
not everyone can
different
see it.
levels to different people.
Yeah, and not everyone can see it. So I was like, oh, that's a really deep one. I feel like that's a great way to end this.
I think so. That sounds great.
Yeah, Brynn, thank you so much for both coming up with this topic, and tantalizing my senses, both sensually and intellectually, as it were. to think about beauty and allow me to go on philosophically while talking about board games, because I think that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. I had a great time. It was great to see and
Yeah.
talk to you again.
Yes. Yep. And guys, I know I'm terrible. I've got to get better at this. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please post a comment down below at the bottom of this video. If it's on YouTube, there's also a place for comments on Spotify and other podcast streaming services. Once again, guys, thank you so much for listening. And Brynn, thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.